Diagrams can be very powerful in a PowerPoint presentation. For this, I'd like to insert a new slide, so I'm going to the Home tab in the ribbon and clicking the New Slide drop down. What I'd like to do is choose the Layout title only. I'm then going to click to add a title and add the title with the process. I'd like to insert some shapes onto my slide, so for this I'm going to the Insert tab in the ribbon, and in the Illustrations group I'll click the Shapes button. The shape I'm after resides in the Flowchart group, and it's simply called a process. So I'm going to click the process, and then I'm going to come down to my slide and drag to form a shape. I need 5 of these shapes, and I need them all to be consistent. So I'm going to press the Control D key combination to duplicate. I'm going to press Control D 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've got 4 duplicate shapes. I'm then going to move this shape, and as I move it, I'm going to look for a line to line it up against. And I'll move the next shape and the next shape until they're roughly in alignment. I'm not too worried about alignment because now I can select all the shapes and align them evenly and distribute them evenly. I'll click on the first shape, hold the Control key and click on the other 4. So I've got all 5 shapes selected. What I'd like to do is go to the Home tab in the ribbon and choose the Arrange button. This is also available under the Drawing Tools Format tab in the ribbon. There's also an Alignment button there. The Alignment button will distribute these shapes horizontally evenly, so they're equidistant between the first and the last shape. So I'll do that, and now they're equidistant each shape. I'll then go back to the Align button, and I'll align these shapes to the top by hitting the Align Top button. And now they're all equally aligned to the top and all equidistant horizontally. And I might use my down arrow on my keyboard just to nudge them down a little bit. I'd now like to add 5 more shapes, and they're different shapes. So I'm going back to the Insert tab in my ribbon and back to the Shapes button. This shape's also in the Flowchart group, and it's called a magnetic disc. So I'm going to click this shape here. I'm then going to drag to roughly create the shape I'm after. Now I need another 4 of these, so I'm going to press the key combination Control D 4 times to create 5 shapes. Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D. And I'll move the shapes roughly into position. As I move them, you may notice a line appears, and this helps me line them up vertically and horizontally, which is quite good to keep an eye out for. So I'm looking for the line to line my shapes up. Alright, now I'd like to make sure they're all aligned to the top, so I'm going to click the first shape, hold the Control key and click each shape. I'm then going to go to the Drawing Tools Format tab in the ribbon, the Alignment group, and align them to the top. And now they're all aligned to the top. I actually want to make sure that they're horizontally equal as well, so I might go back to the Align button and distribute horizontally. And now they're distributed equally horizontally. I'd like to have another magnetic disc, so I'm going to click on one of these magnetic discs and go Control D to duplicate. And then I'm going to move the shape up, and then I'm going to drag its bottom edge and make it slightly taller than the others. I actually find it quite distracting now having the grid and the guidelines showing, so I'm going to go to View in my ribbon and turn off the guidelines and the grid lines. So I've got a clear piece of paper. I'd now like to add some shapes, and they're arrows. So I'm going to go to Insert in the ribbon and Shapes, and this time I'm going to choose an arrow in the Lines group. When I move my mouse over a shape, suddenly little red placeholders appear. These are connection points. I'm going to go from this connection point and now drag and find the other connection point. I need to draw another line or arrow, and I'll go from one connection point to the next connection point and continue to add more arrows going from connection point to connection point. Now I'd like to draw some lines, so I'm going back to my Shapes button in my Insert tab in the ribbon and just choosing a line without an arrowhead. I'll look for a connection point and I'll just drag up a little bit. I now want to draw another line, so I'm going back to my Shapes button and choosing Line without an arrowhead, and I'm going from this connection point across to about here. I'm now going to draw another line, so I go back to my Shapes button, choose the line without an arrowhead, and go from connection point to connection point. And lastly, I need another arrow, so I'm going back to my Shapes button, choosing the arrow, and going from this line to this connection point. And there's my diagram. What I'd like to do now is add my text. To add text, simply click a shape and start typing. And it's as easy as that. I'll add some text to this shape. And now I'll click on my boxes and add some text. Rob A, and then I'll press enter and type bank on the next line. I can see I'm going to have to reduce my font size because it doesn't quite fit, and I don't want to make my boxes bigger. So what I'm going to do is select all my shapes, press Ctrl A, but then I want to exclude the stuff at the top, so maybe I better not press Ctrl A. I'll click to undo the selection, and instead with my mouse I'm going to drag around all the shapes I want to select. This saves me holding the Control key and clicking every single shape. And now I'm going to consistently reduce my font size. So I'll go to the Home tab in the ribbon and I'll choose size 16. Perfect. Now what I'd like to do is format my shapes. I'm going to start with the boxes along the bottom. I'm going to lasso by dragging around the bottom shapes. On my Drawing Tools Format tab in my ribbon, I have shape styles as well as creating my own fill, my own effects and my own outline. But I'm going to just choose from the shape styles. I'm then going to lasso by dragging around my magnetic discs in this layer. And I'm going to choose a different shape style. And lastly, I'll click the top shape. In this one I want to add my own shape fill. So I'm going to choose my own shape fill. I'd also like to format my lines, so this time I'm going to hold the control and click on each line. And very carefully select all the lines. For this I'm going to choose a shape outline and I'm going to choose a different colour. I might also go to shape outline and choose a different weight. And that's my lines formatted. What I'd like to do now is group some of my objects together. For example, I want to group this shape and this line as one. So what I do on my Drawing Tools Format tab is I go to my Group button and I choose the option Group. And now those two are one object instead of two separate objects. And I'll do the same for this shape and this arrow. And I want to group this shape and this arrow. Now I'm going to press the key F4, which is repeat, and that will repeat me grouping these two objects as one. It doesn't like repeating that, which it sometimes doesn't, so I'll resort back to grouping manually. I'd also like to group this line, this line, this line, and this arrow, so I'll choose Group. Now what I'd like to do is apply animation to the various groups I have on this slide. So I'm going to click my first group and I'm going to go to the Animations tab in my ribbon and I'm going to ask this to fly in. And that's the first object that appears in my animation pane. I'll click on the next object and tell this object to fly in. Click on this object, fly in, and apply it to each object. I'd then like each disc to fly in. So I click on each disc and apply the animation, fly in. I'd now like to animate this group and ask it to fly in. And finally, click on the top disk and ask this to fly in. In addition to flying in, I'd like to add an emphasis animation. So I'm going to add a second animation to this object, and that is to get it to perhaps spin. Creating diagrams is very effective. You have got SmartArt, don't forget that, but you can create your own flowcharts and your own diagrams using the Shapes option on the Insert tab in the ribbon.